Hi, Acadiana. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. Happy Monday to you. It's a Monday afternoon, kind of hot and humid here in Lafayette. And it looks like that summer weather is going to continue to stick around for the next several days, although we may get a little better chance for some showers and thunderstorms a little bit later on today. And again, some better chances for rain coming up as we get into the latter part of the week. 92 degrees with a heat index right now at 102. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got outside this afternoon. Most of our traffic cams seeing a mix of sun and clouds this time around. So far, we haven't seen a whole lot of rain. Looks like we've got a WASP that has taken over the Dusant eastbound camera there. But all in all, it looks like things are relatively clear, at least locally. Checking the radar real quick, we do have some widely scattered showers that are trying to work their way onto the coastline. A few spotty areas here, something trying to get going around Delcom. Maybe a few widely scattered showers and thunderstorms down along the Highway 90 corridor as well. The sea breeze is just starting to get going. You can kind of see it here on the radar right now, and we'll probably see some scattered showers and thunderstorms developing in this area and then generally kind of moving off toward the northeast over the course of the afternoon. So that's what we've got happening locally. Let's look at the Gulf of Mexico. Beautiful shot here. Nothing really going on. We've got some thunderstorms that have fired up here right along the Gulf Coast, and we'll see some more daytime heating that should get some stuff going here across the Acadiana area as well. Really good south breeze coming in around a ridge of high pressure that's currently out here over Florida, so that onshore flow is going to continue for the next several days, keeping us very warm and very humid. Now, there's a bit of a ridge in the upper levels right now that will suppress some of the activity, but I think that's going to start to break down later in the week and give us a much better chance for some showers and thunderstorms. But a little flare up of some thunderstorm activity over the Bay of Campeche and more of some upper level energy here over eastern Florida. But all in all, things are pretty quiet here along the Gulf of Mexico. Satellite imagery looking at Central America. Again, another area that's very quiet right now. Flare up of some thunderstorms here off the Costa Rican coast and down toward Panama, but nothing to worry about there. The Caribbean satellite is also very quiet, and what you'll probably notice here is a lot of Saharan dust that's across the central part of the Caribbean Sea right now, and that extends out here into the Atlantic Ocean too. We're going to talk more about Saharan dust and how that's going to affect the upcoming hurricane season and the numbers that have been predicted as well. More of an upper level low here north of the islands. That's going to bring some showers maybe to the Bahamas and the East Coast a little bit later on. Meanwhile, as we look out at the Atlantic Ocean, again, you're seeing a ton of Saharan dust coming off the African coast right now, working its way off toward the west and into the Caribbean as well, and that scoots into the Caribbean and into the southern part of the Gulf of Mexico. So if you got to see some pretty sunsets this weekend, it looks like those are going to continue. We have a tropical wave here, another tropical wave here, and like I said, more of an upper level low that's out here. So not a lot going on over the tropical Atlantic, but again, I want you to stick with me through this Let's Talk Tropics, because we're going to talk about the numbers that were predicted and if this Saharan dust is going to suppress some of those numbers and mess with some of the preseason forecast. But there's a quick look at the eastern Atlantic. Again, a lot of Saharan dust that's out there, and more thunderstorms will be rolling off the African coast here over the next couple of days. Water temperatures, of course, are perfect for tropical conditions as well as the tropical cyclone heat potential. And it's actually pretty good that we're not seeing anything out there, because anything that we're trying to move over these particular areas here or even out here would have the tendency to develop quite rapidly if the atmospheric conditions were there as well. So let's just look out in La La Land and we'll take a look at the GFS model. This is taking us all the way out to the end of the month, and we've got a big ridge of high pressure that's staying in place here across the central part of the Atlantic Ocean. So any tropical waves that come off the African coast or develop over the Atlantic would shove their way out in this direction. Any frontal boundaries that would come off the east coast with a low developing on it would of course move away and go around that big ridge of high pressure. But just looking at this model going out that far, I'm not seeing anything developing, and the same really goes for the Euro model. It's very similar, big ridge of high pressure out here, some moisture trying to work its way off, but again, nothing looking very interesting here for the next 10 days. So the tropical weather outlook is quiet. the National Hurricane Center isn't expecting any tropical activity for at least the next week. So let's look at that Saharan dust, and this is the dry air and Saharan dust product, and I'll tell you folks, this is pretty unprecedented to see all of this Saharan dust covering virtually all of the development zone of the tropical Atlantic, coming into the Caribbean Sea as well. And even though it's not showing up a lot here in the Atlantic Ocean or the Gulf of Mexico, there are areas of Saharan dust that will be reaching the northern Gulf Coast, bringing us some enhanced sunrises and sunsets due to the dust out there. You get some really pretty colors that are out there, but all of this dry air and Saharan dust will be suppressing a lot of our tropical cyclone development. So the precipitable water, now this is just the measure of the moisture that's basically down at the surface, and it is very dry out here in the Atlantic. And there's a few moist areas that are out here over the Gulf in the far southwestern Caribbean Sea and maybe right here off the Atlantic coast. But really, there just isn't anything that's showing up in those areas. And even if there was something out there, it wouldn't be able to tap into any moisture that's higher up either, because this is the humidity between 700 and 300 millibars. So this is the mid-levels going into the upper levels of the atmosphere. And again, there is a ton of dry air that's out here over the Atlantic Ocean. And again, if we had any kind of a tropical wave that would try to work through here, even if it had the low-level moisture, it wouldn't be able to reach the mid and upper-level moisture because there just isn't anything there. So as far as July development, normally the Gulf of Mexico is still open for business, much of the Caribbean, and now the far western Atlantic. Even though we had Beryl out there during the end of June and the very beginning of the month of July, it's very unusual to see things develop out in this region during the month of July. Cold fronts sometimes come off the east coast and can generate a low pressure area, and generally a little more than 30 to maybe up to 50% of tropical systems end up developing out here in the Atlantic, a little higher chance than what you would see over here in the Gulf of Mexico. And the frequency of those storms does continue to climb, even though this is the time of the year where we just don't see a whole lot of action. Most of the reason is because we have the Saharan dust and the dry air that kind of settles in during the month of July. We used to joke about this back in the TV days in the Weather Center about the July doldrums. Not only do you have no hurricane activity, but also the weather here at home becomes the same every single day. Hot, humid, 40% chance for afternoon storms. And you get pretty bored when you get into these summer type of doldrums. So the progress of a season, if you want to just look at the averages, we are already ahead of schedule. Normally, we don't get our second named storm until about July 17th. We've already had three. We've had Alberto, Beryl, and Chris so far. And usually you don't get your third one until about August the 3rd, and we're way ahead of schedule when it comes to hurricanes, when generally the first hurricane comes August 11th, and the first major one usually doesn't come until September the 1st. And we had that on June the 30th with Hurricane Beryl that was breaking all kinds of records. Remember, the latest Colorado State University forecast that came out just last week, upping their numbers to 25 from 23, and upping their numbers to 12 there for the hurricanes, and even the major hurricanes up to 6, which is nearly double what the average is here for the last several years, last 30 years or so. So why would they continue to raise these numbers when you're looking at all this Saharan dust? And will we be able to reach these numbers? Let's just say we don't have any tropical systems during the month of July. That means in order just to reach that number, we're still going to have 22 named storms in August, September, October, and November. So let's see if that's actually possible. Well, the most storms per month is what I've got on this graphic here. And in July, the most we've ever had is 5. And that was back in 2005 and also back in 2020. One of those years, those couple of years that you love to hate, and especially 2020. We love to hate 2020 for various reasons, not just hurricane season. But let's just say we have 0 and we get 8 in August and 10 in September. That'll take us to 21. So if we reach these record numbers like we have in recent memory, 2012, 2004, and there's that 2020 that shows up again in September, and then throw on maybe 8 more. Let's say if we get all of the named storms here, what is that? 8, 16, 26, 29, and the 3 that we've already got under our belt would make 32. So that would be not just reaching that number of 25, but also having a record number. So let's just hope that we don't break the records again for all 4 months. But again, even if we don't get any hurricanes during the month, or named storms, let's say, during the month of July, reaching that 25 number is still there in the crosshairs. I think it could still be reached. So we'll watch those, but I don't think we're going to see a whole lot for the next couple of weeks or so. But I did want to bring to your attention that Hurricane Beryl, again, was a record-setting storm. It was our strongest June hurricane. It was the strongest July hurricane. It reached Category 5 earlier than any other hurricane. And then it made landfall along the mid-Texas coast before moving inland over the Houston area after it made landfall. And there are still over 250,000 folks that don't have power in and around the Houston area. And I want you to think about that for just a second, because Hurricane Beryl made landfall a week ago today. Think of all of the things that you have done in the last week and everything that you did over the weekend, and you had no issues because you had electricity, you had air conditioning, you had internet, you had cell phone, you had gasoline, you had all those different things. And we still have 250,000 customers that are out over southeastern Texas due to a Category 1 hurricane. So not only is this affecting folks because of the extreme heat and not having the air conditioning, but there's a lot of folks, and I get it. It is very expensive to go out and buy a several $1,000 generator to power your home. Even some of those power stations that you can charge, and they might be able to power up a lot of your cell phones and maybe run a fan or two. Even those can run $300, $400, $500 or even up to $1,000. So I get it. It's expensive to prepare, and to be prepared for 7 days without power is really tough. So think about where you would be right now if we still didn't have electricity a week after just a Category 1 hurricane, which is why when we left you on Friday, I gave you this list and I asked a few of you to say, hey, let's try to get 5 of these items that are on the list. And this is really only helping you to prepare for 3 days, let alone 7 or 8 days. So batteries, flashlights, water, and non-perishable foods, those were the number one things. You need to have those, plus of course the gas. But I think most people would go out and get propane and gas if there was a hurricane threatening. But again, it's very expensive to do these things. But if you can grab some of these things now, little by little, you should be ready for the next one. But just think about that in the back of your head. This was just a Category 1 hurricane. And I hear a lot of folks, oh, Category 1, piece of cake. I'm not leaving until a Category 3. But a lot of folks leave because they want to run away from the water, which the storm surge is the most important thing you need to evacuate from. Secondly, is the wind. We say hide from the water, or run from the water and hide from the wind, but then you also have to think about your day-to-day comfort. And for a lot of these folks, they weren't expecting to not have electricity for over a week like this. So sometimes comfort comes into that evacuation plan as well, and that's why you need to try to get these things together right now while all of the things are available and you have the electricity and the internet and everything is up and running so that you can go ahead and get what you need. So just think about that when it comes to our tropical weather, and even though things are quiet, things can get busy once again. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel, and also turn on those notifications, and that way you'll know when Let's Talk Tropics goes live again for tomorrow, and when Acadiana Weather Today's morning forecast shows up sometime between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon, and I will see you on Tuesday.